Psalms 81 verse 3. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. Psalms 81 verse 4. For this was a statute for Israel in the law of God of Jacob. So this is for the Israelites. If you're an Israelite, Blacks, Hispanics, Latinos, and Native Americans, you are to be keeping the new moons. You know what I'm saying? You got to keep new moon. You gotta get you a lunar calendar. Get you a lunar calendar and keep up with these appointed times. Get you a lunar calendar, and it'll tell you basically when the new moon comes in. It'll tell you all that good stuff. A good website to keep in mind is moonconnection.org. I believe it's moonconnection. If it's not moonconnection.org, it's moonconnection.com. And it has the lunar calendar. And it'll show you the new moons, the full moons, and all that type of stuff. So add that website in your inventory so you can see the appointed times to determine these new moons. Okay, now let's continue to read on. In Psalms 81 verse 5. Psalms 81 verse 5, it says, This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not. And so, basically, I showed you Psalms 81. Psalms 81 verses 3 through 5. So now we're going to go to, let's see, matter of fact, we'll go down. We'll keep going down. Psalms 81 verse 6. We'll go down to Psalm 81 verse 6. So before we go anywhere else, let's go down to Psalm 81 verse 6. Now watch this, guys. Psalms 81 verse 5, let's read it again. This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not. Now watch this, Psalms 81 verse 7. No, Psalms 81 verse 6. And I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were delivered from the pots. So what is this talking about in Psalms 81 verses 5 and 6? Well, when you go back to Psalm 81 verse 5, it speaks about how it mentions Egypt, the land of Egypt. So what that's talking about? You know, that's when Israel went out through the land of Egypt, guys. Because this is talking about the Egyptian captivity when the Most High delivered us from out of Egypt. Psalms 81:5 is talking about when the Most High delivered us from out of the hands of the Egyptians, out of Egypt. Psalms 81 verse 6, it says, I removed his shoulder from the burden. What is that talking about? Talking about when the Most High delivered Israel from Egyptian captivity. So when I removed his shoulder from the burden, his hands were delivered from the pots. Talking about how the Most High brought Israel out from Egyptian captivity. So when Israel was delivered from Egypt, the Most High ordained for Israel to blow up the trumpet. So this is talking about when Israel was delivered from Egypt. Once again, when Israel was delivered from Egypt, the Most High ordained for Israel to sound the trumpet. The Most High delivered Israel out of Egypt during the full moon, which is the 15th day, or ABIB. Okay? So the Most High delivered Israel from out of Egypt during the 15th day of ABIB. That's what it's talking about in Psalms 81 verses 5 and 81 verses 6. You see, it's talking about the deliverance of Israel out of Egypt. When did Israel come out of Egypt? The 15th day of the month of ABIB. Israel came out of Egypt on the 15th day of the month of ABIB. Now what usually hit on the 15th day? The full moon. And I'm going to show you this. Alright? So he told Israel to blow up the trumpet during this particular full moon to commemorate the day he brought them out of Egypt. So the full moon is not the new moon. Once again, the full moon here is not the new moon, and the new moon is not the full moon. Now what's the difference? The new moon is the first day of the month, because the month is regulated by the moon. So that's a new month. In other words, when it says new moon, the word moon goes back to, I believe, a Old English term, mona, which means month. So it's a new month. So every time a new month comes in, you will know about a new moon. And the new moon is actually the first day of the month. How do we know that? Watch this. Let's go to Samuel. 1 Samuel 20 and 24. 1 Samuel 20 and 24. So David hid himself in the field. And when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. So this is all talking about when the new moon came in, when David hid himself in the field. 1 Samuel 20 and 24. We're going to continue to read down to verses maybe 27. 1 Samuel 20 and 25. And the king sat upon his seat, as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. 1 Samuel 20 and 26. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. Watch this. 1 Samuel 20 and 27. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day. So what that lets you know in 1 Samuel 20 and 27? That lets you know if this was the second day, then the new moon had to be the first day of the month. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Because in 1 Samuel 20 and 24, it says that David hid himself in the field when? During the new moon. And then 1 Samuel 20 and 27 says, and it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day. So the second day came after the new moon. So what that lets you see, the new moon is the first day of the month. But if you want to say the new moon is the full moon, guess what? The full moon is the 15th day of the month. And I'm going to show you using the Bible. So you want to say that if you want to say that the full moon is the new moon, no, the full moon is the 15th day of the month. The new moon is the first day of the month. How we know that? I showed you already. One more time. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 24. So David hid himself in the field when the new moon was come. And then 1 Samuel 20 and 27. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month. So the new moon made the first day of the month. And then 1 Samuel 20 and 27 say the second day came in. So the new moon is the first day of the month. But if you want to say the new moon is the full moon, that would be the 15th day of the month, because the full moon comes in on the 15th day of the month. So the new moon is not the full moon, and the full moon is not the new moon. Don't worry about it. I got plenty more book, chapter, and verses to show you guys. That's why I told you about the doctrines of man. Somebody came up with this bullshit talking about that the full moon is the new moon. It's not. Now let's continue on. Look at the diagram again. See that? The new moon is the first day of the month, and the full moon is the 15th day of the month. How can we determine that? We're going to show you. Let's go to Numbers 33. So let's go to the book of Numbers 33. Numbers 33 in the Old Testament. And I'm going to begin with verse 1 and work my way down to verse 3. So Numbers 33 verse 1, let's get it. Numbers 33 verse 1. These are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. Numbers 33 verse 2. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys by the commandment of the Lord. And these are the journeys according to their going out. Now watch this. Pay close attention. Numbers 33 verse 3. And they departed from Ramesses. Talking about the Israelites, how they came out of Egypt. they departed from Ramesses in the first month. Now, what is the first month? ABIB, which is March, right? And they departed from Ramesses in the first month on the 15th day of the first month. On the morrow after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. So what does Numbers 33 and 3 tells you? What does it tell you? What is it trying to say? The Most High delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt during the full moon on the 15th day. That's what it's trying to tell you. When Israel came out of Egypt, it was on the 15th day of the month of Abib. So basically, when Israel got delivered from Egypt, they came out of Egypt on the 15th day, which was a full moon. Again, guys, the Most High delivered Israel from the Egyptian captivity during the month of Abib on the 15th day. When Israel was delivered from Egypt, the Most High ordained for Israel to blow the trumpet on the 15th day. That's not to say that the full moon is the new moon, just because they sounded the trumpet on the 15th day when they left Egypt. You get what I'm saying? So watch this. Let's continue to move on. It tells you once again, Numbers 33 and 3, and they departed from Ramesses in the first month. What is that? March on the 15th day. What is that? Full moon of the first month. On the morrow, after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. So when you go back to Psalms, keep this in mind. When you go back to Psalms 81, you got to understand the timeline. When you go back to Psalms 81, let's go back to Psalms 81. Little people know this. So when you go back to Psalms 81 verse 3, Psalms 81 verse 3, it says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed of our solemn feast day. And then after Psalms 81 and 3, it goes down to say, for this was the statute of Israel and the law of God of Jacob. And then it goes down to Psalms 81 and 5. Psalms 81 and 5 and Psalms 81 verse 6 is dealing with the history when Israel came out of Egypt. So when Israel came out of Egypt, that was the 15th day of the month of Abib. When Israel came out of Egypt during the month of Abib, which is March, on the 15th day, they came out on a full moon. You see what I'm saying? That's not to say that the full moon is the new moon. That's just when they came out of Egypt. They came out on the 15th day of the first month, which is Abib, which is March. And this was told to them to blow the trumpet during that, blow the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed of our solemn feast day. So we supposed to blow the trumpet in the new moon. We supposed to blow the trumpet in the new moon. And the new moon, guys, the new moon is the visible dark moon, which makes the first day of the month. And we supposed to blow the trumpet then. But when it gets down here, it says blow the trumpet in the new moon, which is the first day of the month. But when it gets down here to Psalms 81 verse 5 and verse 6, that's talking about when the Most High brought Egypt, when the Most High brought Israel out of Egypt. And he brought Israel out of Egypt right here on the 15th day of the month of Abib. See what I'm saying? Which was a full moon. You get what I'm saying? Now watch this. Let's go to Leviticus 23 and verse 5. The new moon is not the full moon, because the new moon is the first day of the month. And the full moon is the 15th day of the month. So let's go to Leviticus 23. All right. Leviticus 23 and 5. It says, in the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. Now, when did I tell you the children of Israel came out of Egypt? On the 15th day of the month of Abib. And on the 15th day, a full moon comes in. Leviticus 23 and 6. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of the unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. Now keep in mind, on the 15th day is the month, it's the same month, 15th day, March the 15th. March is the first month of the year. On the 15th day of that same month, which is the ABIB, is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So on the 15th day, just keep in mind, on the 15th day of the first month, that's when Israel got his independence and came out of Egypt. And that just happened to be a full moon that night. But a full moon is not a new moon. See what I'm saying? Now let's go to Luke 22 and 1 in the New Testament. Luke 22 and 1. Watch this. Pay close attention. Luke 22 and 1. Now the feast of the unleavened bread drew nigh, which is called a Passover. So Luke 22 and 1 tells you about the feast of the unleavened bread, which drew nigh, which is also called a Passover. And when is that day of the feast of unleavened bread? The 15th day of the month of Abib. And on the 15th day, you always have a new moon. I mean, not a new moon, but on the 15th day, you always have a full moon, man. Not always, but most likely. You understand? Now, just remember, the new moon is not the full moon. The full moon is not the new moon. We already showed you that, right, guys? So now, we need to go into the Apocrypha. He made the moon also to serve in her seasons for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. Sirach 43 and 7. From the moon is the sign of feast. That's how you can determine when the next feast day coming in, by the new moon. A light that decreaseth in her perfection. So you see where it says a light that decreaseth in her perfection, in her perfection. Now, watch, a lot of Israelite brothers and sisters will say, see, a light that decreaseth, because you know, from the full moon, the full moon decreases. Like when a full moon, in order for it to get back here, it would decrease. But if you have a new moon, the new moon will increase. You see what I'm saying? And so a full moon has to decrease in order to become a new moon. So they would say, well, the full moon must be the new moon that it's talking about here. See what I'm saying? Because that's what most believe, because in Sirach 43 and 7, what lead them to believe that, it says the moon is the sign of feast, the light that decreaseth in her perfection. But watch this. Sirach 43 and 8. The month is called after her name, increasing. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing. You know, so a new moon is the first month. It is the first day of the month. And then increase wonderfully in her changing. Being the instruments of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. Verse 9 out of Sirach 43. The beauty of heaven, the glory of the stars, and the ornament giving light into the highest places of the Lord. See what I'm saying? And so this is not talking about the moon cycle. You got to understand, it ain't talking about the moon cycle. You feel what I'm saying? Because that's how they would regulate. They would say, well, in Sirach 43 verse 7, it says it decreaseth in her perfection. And they say, well, since it's talking about decreasing in her perfection, then they say, well, the new moon must be the full moon, because the full moon has to decrease. But it is not talking about the moon cycle order. It's just talking about how it's talking about a declaration of times and signs. But if you really want to get technical, Sirach 43 and 8, it says the month is called after her name, increasing. It increasing wonderfully in her changing. See what I'm saying? Increasing. A new moon has to increase in order to become a full moon. And a full moon must decrease in order to become a new moon. So The new moon is not the full moon, and the full moon is not the new moon. Once again, why? Because the new moon is the first day of the month, and the full moon is the 15th day of the month. But guys, you know what? I'm not gonna sit here. I'm not gonna argue with you. You Hebrew Israelites, I'm not gonna argue with you. If you think that the full moon is the new moon, and you want to keep on upholding that, do so. Do so, man. As long as you take out a new moon service to keep to the Most High, man. I just felt led to do this video because a lot of brothers and sisters believe in that. But if you believe that the full moon is the new moon, I can't change your mind on that. I'll just have to pray that the Most High open your understanding so you can see. Until next time, hope you stand firm in the faith. All praises and glorification to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Stand firm in the faith, man. All right? And I'll see you in the next edition. Shalom.